Wait for it. Wait for it. Zoom still says it's loading. Hold on. Developers, is there a more satisfying sound than a LaCroix being opened? No, there's not. Hipsters and everyone else. Hipsters stole this drink. This existed before it was popular. Mango. How's everybody doing? What's up? It's RealToughCandy back online with you guys today. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Let me get into my YouTube settings, and we are going to have some fun today talking about Flexbox versus Bootstrap. Now, some of you may know Bootstrap 4 is the thing. It's the most updated version of Bootstrap, and one of the most, if not the most exciting things about Bootstrap 4 is that it now uses Flexbox instead of floats for positioning. Now, let me just make sure you guys can hear me because that would suck. Let me go into my little YouTube settings here. How's everybody doing, by the way? Happy Friday, TGIF. Last Friday, we had a great live stream. It was very exciting. We had a lot of new members join us for that one, and I want to give a special welcome to all new channel members, official and unofficial, because there's like the YouTube channel button. We have a few new members there, so thank you for your support, and also people just tuning in just to say hey, so welcome. Today's topic was thrown out by Rikers Island. Rikers, are you here? Blink once. What's up, Eugene? Donovan, how's it going? Ariel 35, Hologram Nunchuck back at it. Randy Miller, Friday is great with Candy. Thanks, Randy. Rikers Island, here he is. He's up and running. Donovan says Flexbox all day. Used to be big on Bootstrap. Same here. Smokey, what's going on? Let's talk about this. I'm not going to waste any time. You guys know I usually do the pleasantries, the promos. I'm just going to sip my little drink. We can talk about this. So, Bootstrap versus Flexbox versus all these other layouts. What are they? Why would you use them? Now, to add some context to this conversation, when I first started learning web development, I didn't learn Bootstrap right out of the gate. I think it was mentioned. I don't know if this is true or not. Does Cold Steel use Bootstrap in his course? Somebody let me know. Because I don't remember how I actually first started using it or who told me about it. It may have been that Cold Steel course, but I'm not sure. Is anyone remembering if he talks about Bootstrap? And actually, this is not Bootstrap. This is Bootstrap View. So this is using Bootstrap with Vue. I just wanted to show that. Oh, you guys can't see this. Hold on, let me share my screen. I feel like a total rube right now. Hold on, let me share this. Okay, here we go. Share. Yeah, now you guys can see this. Okay, so what I'm looking at, where my gaze is averting to is bootstrap-vue.org. So this is for Vue, when you want to build responsive mobile first sites and not have to worry about things working in the front end as far as layout goes and other components. But that's getting way too far ahead of myself. This is the actual Bootstrap site, the OG Bootstrap. This is getbootstrap.com. And according to their landing page, I can affirm this is true. You can quickly design and customize responsive mobile-first sites with Bootstrap, the world's most popular front-end open source toolkit with Sass variables and mixins, responsive grid system, extensive pre-built components, and powerful JavaScript plugins. Bootstrap, too long didn't read. Bootstrap makes it super easy to build clean layouts and clean interfaces. You don't need to know a lot about programming. You might not even need to know anything about programming to start using Bootstrap. And that's so exciting because one of the big fun things about this career field is that you can see your work and you can see almost instantaneously in a visual way your input. And what I mean by that is you could spend 5 minutes using this thing and have something on your screen to say, hey, I built that, kind of. And it's so fun. It sparks joy, to steal a phrase from the great Marie Kondo. It sparks joy when you build these things so fast and you can get that type of feedback. The problem with something like Bootstrap, have you guys seen that funny site? It's called like every effing Bootstrap theme ever made. This thing is so popular that it's everywhere. It's fatiguing at some points because so many developers, as that funny meme site says, so many people grab the first theme with Bootstrap, put a few custom things in there, a few little bits of custom text or whatever, and they publish it, and it looks like the millions of others. Bootstrap is awesome because you can build things so quickly, but that's also its downfall. Now, if we go into the icons, a lot of these are going to look familiar, right? Bootstrap has its own icon library. This may or may not be a newer thing, I'm not sure. But it's stuff like this that's just so helpful. You don't have to peck around and find 20 different libraries just to find an alarm icon that works well with Flexbox or something. Because again, Bootstrap 4, which is the latest and greatest of Bootstrap, uses Flexbox. And here is this to illustrate this. Can you guys actually see my screen? Hold on, let me just make sure. Okay, great. That's great. Let me move this thingy. Okay, how do I move this thing? Okay. Let me move this down here. I'm still getting used to this Zoom thing, developers. Using the screen share and stuff. Okay, so going back here to make things even more confusing, Bootstrap has what they call their grid system. Now, as you may know, CSS has its own. A few years ago, it just dropped this bomb with the CSS grid, capital G, and they're using grid here with a capital G, but actually it's lowercase g. And that there is a difference here. There is a very important difference because this is not the CSS grid. This is a Flexbox grid. And again, Bootstrap 4 uses Flexbox rather than floats for positioning. And that is a huge, probably one of the biggest selling points of Bootstrap 4 as far as new features. Like, this is awesome. But Flexbox is very different from the CSS grid. And so when you see something like this, it's easy to get confused and be like, okay, Flexbox grid? Let me blow your mind a little bit here and take you to, whoops, yeah, I gotta show you guys this in a sec. So I whipped this up, I don't know, a couple months back when I was doing some other project, a Flexbox versus grid. So now this is not Bootstrap grid. This is not Flexbox grid. I'm talking about here the CSS grid. Flexbox versus grid. Flexbox, items in a single dimension. This is important. One dimensional, you get row or column. It's not both of them. That's grid, 2D, rows and columns. Flexbox is content based, so it's a content first layout. Grid is container based, so it's a layout first approach. For example, grid helps you create outer layout of the page, then you can build a complex and responsive design, whereas Flexbox mostly helps align content and move blocks. And this is another really important part too, because Flexbox in Bootstrap 4 is helping align things and move those blocks when you're designing. So it's easy to get caught up in Bootstrap, in Flexbox and grid. People got really excited about Flexbox. I was at an open source conference a couple years ago, and Flexbox was all the rage. People could not stop talking about it. And this guy's talk at this open source conference, it was overflow capacity because people were so excited about Flexbox. Now it's the grid. Like, that same room, if you were to do a presentation on Flexbox in 2020, and some guy was doing a CSS grid presentation. In the other room, CSS grid would be overflow capacity because it has the two-dimensional property to it, or that two-dimensional feature, whereas Flexbox cannot do that. However, with all of this hype, with all of this buzz, with all of these themes, with all of these things, you can do a lot of layout stuff without using Flexbox, without using grid, without using something heavy-handed like Bootstrap. You can create, now this is from, some of you may recognize this. This is a very early project from Colt Steele's Bootcamp. He basically just has you make a pseudo grid, if you will. And this is what it looks like. Now I want to bring your attention to the CSS used here. Not much going on here in terms of the image. 30% width, float left, margin 1.66%. That's it. That's it. And look at how nice this looks. Now, mind you, just like with WordPress themes, 95% of something looking nice has to do with the photos rather than the layout. If it's the first thing we see, it's the first thing we draw our attention to. Because these are beautiful monochromatic photos, they just look nice. However, this layout is nothing to shake a stick at. But you can start seeing, now I'm going to start closing in on this. You can quickly see the limitations of this layout. Now I could add breakpoints, media queries. I can make it interesting here and there, but there really isn't much going on. It lacks some zip, some pizzazz, but it does look very nice, just right out of the box. And it's, developers, it's 3 lines of CSS. Well, 5 lines, but you know what I'm saying. The protein of it is 3 lines, and it still looks really good. Whereas when you start messing with something like Flexbox, and especially Bootstrap, if you're using Bootstrap for something just like this, that's overkill. And I know how tempting it can be because it is just so darn easy to use. I don't use Bootstrap. I haven't used Bootstrap for-profit projects for years. But I do use it for prototyping because it is so fast. It's great. And not to beat a dead horse, but Bootstrap 4 with the Flexbox, they really came correct with that. That was a really great idea. Some of these themes, I think most of these, okay, some of these themes are free on this site, most are not. So this looks like, okay, all of these are not, maybe. How do you find free ones? Anyways, it's not important. There are tons of Bootstrap themes out there. And this is another thing too to keep in mind when you build these projects. If you built it in Bootstrap 3, you're going to be having to do some work getting that updated to Bootstrap 4, especially if you were using floats. Now, it's easy to demonize floats, but they've saved me so many times when doing layout stuff. They're such a quick fix. Yes, a lot of times they're a Band-Aid, but you know, there's sometimes you just, the context is correct for using a float, and they're not of the devil. You're going to be just fine if you use them, but just know we do have more modern things. So what is everyone, are you developers? Let me do a quick little poll here. For developers who are familiar with Bootstrap, are you using it in modern projects? Are you using it for profit? Are you using it for personal projects? What contexts are you using Bootstrap? With what context are you using Bootstrap? Because like I said, I haven't used it because it is so heavy-handed. I haven't used it in freelancing for years, and I never worked with it in enterprise. We stuck with custom layouts, and for sure, you can go custom with Bootstrap. And there are other front-end frameworks too, CSS frameworks like Skeleton. That's a really good one. Skeleton is just so light. It's so light and it looks so good. And there's many other ones that you can use. But look at all this stuff, like all these things. Nav bars. There's a whole freaking section on nav bars. Nav bar bottom, nav bar fixed, nav bar static, nav bars. Look at all this. And it's so clean. You know, now that I think of it, I haven't even checked the comments yet, but I'm pretty sure Colt Steel does talk about this stuff because I somehow recognize this, or maybe I'm just making it up. I don't know. I can't say either way. Jumbotron, grid. So this is another, yeah, so the framework section has grid, but this is not the CSS grid. This is the Flexbox grid. Interesting. Additional classes added in Bootstrap 4.4 allow containers that are 100% wide until a particular breakpoint. The syntax for Bootstrap isn't too terrible either. It does feel a little redundant at times, but I've seen a lot worse. Let's go to the comments and see what everyone's saying about Bootstrap. What's up, everyone watching? Thanks for tuning in. If you are tuning in, say hello. What's up, Chiquito? Don't forget to hit the like button, everyone. Agreed. If you're here, we are chatting, we are doing it live, talking about this stuff. Hit that like button and show YouTube that we are here. One Syrian, what's going on? Curtis Davis, hello, Muhammad. German Shepherd channel, info channel, says, I'm using CSS, not familiar with Bootstrap yet. Don't worry, yeah, don't worry about it. I should say, I don't want to say don't worry about it, but you know, maybe worry about it a little bit when the time comes, but honestly, you're not missing out on all that much. The only thing Bootstrap is doing is making things easier, which I shouldn't say only, because that's a really big deal. Like, this Bootstrap makes things a lot easier. But if you're just working with regular CSS right now, that's a great start. Out the gate working with Bootstrap and not working with vanilla CSS could come back to harm you. It's always good to, if anyone out there is wondering where they can learn just the basics of HTML and CSS, there are so many resources out there. I don't have the book here on me, but it's Mark Meyer's A Smarter Way to Learn HTML and CSS. Yes, he talks about floats. No, he's not going to throw this crazy Flexbox and grid stuff at you. Because here's the thing, developers, Flexbox and both Flexbox and grid are tough. I have to use documentation like very regularly. That I can't use Flexbox or grid without documentation. But to be fair, you can build some really cool freaking things with both Flexbox and the grid. And if you really want to get funky, Geo for Bootstrap, people, a theme for Twitter Bootstrap. I don't know, why is there not a line to download this and start using this on personal projects? Let's throw it back. Let's bring it back. I don't see the problem here. I really don't see the problem with any of this. And it's funny too, because it is an actual project that you can use. A GeoCities front-end framework. It's really funny. So I want to bring your attention to something that modern CSS layouts can do. And it's an effect that I really love. It's Masonry. And the idea is, you guys know, you've seen these brick buildings and these various architectural wonders where the bricks may not be even. I'm not explaining myself correctly. This is a project I'm working on for one of my courses called Portfolio Surgery. And it's going to be dropping sometime in late July, early August on my new platform. We look at 5 big ways you can totally transform your portfolio and your projects. And I'm super hyped. And this is one of the projects that I'm working on for that course. And this is an example of the Masonry layout. Now, I think there is an actual library for Masonry. It's either a JavaScript library or CSS, I can't remember. But this was used strictly with CSS using the grid. Now, normally, you do not see the Masonry layout used with grid, but I wanted to try something different, and I am really pleased with the results. Some people don't like these hanging edges, and that can be fixed with JavaScript. But this is an example of something that modern layouts bring us. I not to say I'm so awesome, but I really like how this turned out. I really like how this turned out, and I'll show you the CSS in just a second. These are photos I took. I was doing a graffiti exploration project as part of my, I don't know, just some way to relax. I really like trains, and I really like graffiti, and particularly like abandoned areas. And these were photos that I took as part of that project. And so if we close it here, look, this is just, look at how nice this looks. Look at the responsiveness of this. Now, yes, I did add media queries, but if you're on an iPad or something, I think that looks pretty sharp. Whoops, let's go back here, my bad. If we continue to close it up to go to something like this, before Flexbox and Grid, you just couldn't do something like that. Or you had to be like, you had to be a CSS guru for serious, like you have to spend 12 hours in a CSS monastery, like inhaling the incense, drinking a chamomile tea, and hoping the computer gods would plant the knowledge to develop something like this. And it would be a lot. It would be a lot of CSS. Now, for this project, again, the Masonry layout isn't something you see a lot with the Grid, but I wanted to try something different. So here are, let's go to my grid styles here. Nothing too insane. I do have some custom CSS properties here. Don't pay attention much to those, but here's the syntax. Grid template columns on repeat. Grid auto rows. I stuck in my variable because I've used this again for my media queries. Grid gap, nothing crazy, but that's kind of like, I'm not going to say it's simple because it wasn't. You really have to do a lot of planning when you're about to use something like Flexbox or the Grid, because it can go south very quickly. Like, and the frustrating part about CSS is that it's not a programming language. So it's like, it's just so hacky. There are so many hacks, and it does feel like sometimes when you're doing this stuff like vanilla CSS, you know, no Bootstrap, no frameworks, when you're doing this stuff just plain, it feels like you're just working without a net, because there isn't one true path. You know what I mean? There's like, well, you could do a float left and then do a mini max and then add a grid row, but then be sure to do margin auto, like 12 pixels. Like, wait, what? How does that make any sense? So much of CSS is a hack. And for many of us, even front-end developers, that's frustrating. And to tie this all in, that's where Bootstrap comes in. Because working on something like this, working on something like this took me a while. And yes, we do have, like I said, the Masonry. I don't know if it's a CSS or JavaScript library to make this kind of thing easier. But any type of extension on this, or refactoring, or just adding a feature to this is tough. So that's why people choose Bootstrap, because you don't have to think about it. Rikers, what's going on? What are your thoughts on Bootstrap, Rikers? Let's see the comments here. G Hernandez says, have you used Tailwind? I'm seeing it everywhere. Hold on, let me go back. You guys probably don't want to see this silly thing. We'll go back to, there we go. So G Hernandez, let me go back to your comment. Where is it going? Where is this freaking comment? welcome everyone to the chat, by the way. Rebecca Fineway. Hey, Fineway, what's going on? Jay Incarnate. I need to find that one comment. Jeez. I don't even know where it went. Let's see. Curtis Davis says people use important to override often in CSS. Yes, and that's another example of, I don't want to say it's a hack, but because that is something, it's so easy to just code yourself into a corner, especially with CSS. And if you're not using something like less or Sass, which is another modern CSS evolution, Sass is so awesome. You can actually create variables, you can create mix-ins, and all these other things you hear in libraries like Vue, like, oh, Vue mix-in. No, we actually have that for CSS now with something like Sass. And making your CSS components reusable, making them extensible, and making your life easier. Sass is awesome. And if, again, that's another thing where it's like, it's so tempting because if you're a new person, seeing these pretty dangling things in front of your eyes like Bootstrap or Tailwind, that was the comment. Okay, I couldn't find it on the chat, but someone asked about Tailwind. I'll get to that in a second. You see these awesome things dangling in front of you, and you ask, what's the point of me spending 6 hours on this freaking layout? Even if you're new, what's the point of me doing this when I have something like Bootstrap? When I first started using Bootstrap, I felt guilty. And somebody on YouTube was like, listen, RTC, this is nothing to feel guilty about. These things exist for a reason. Years later, I totally agree with that. But at the same time, if you don't have at least a little bit of understanding of CSS, these types of products, these types of frameworks, you're gonna code yourself in a corner, and it never ends well. It never ends well. So I know the pull of just wanting to use this. Just say, you know what, regular CSS, it's all a hack. Forget it. But at the same time, your dependency, if you have a 100% dependency on these things, and then these things start changing, that's when the trouble starts. Because going from Bootstrap 3 to Bootstrap 4, it's not a one touch, okay, upgrade my code. Things are gonna break. The floats turn into, it's time for floats to turn into Flexbox, etc. And if you don't have at least a little bit of understanding of that, it's gonna hurt. And it's just not a good situation. But going back to that important thing, the CSS overrides, I'm thinking of some sort of tool or some sort of extension where I can just like one click for like the 2x important override, or like the 3x multiplier override, like important, very important. Or like, okay, this one's important. What if I put super important? And so what Curtis is talking about with that important thing is that, let's say you have a style sheet. Let's say you have 10 style sheets, and there's a color. Let's say you want to change this color of this banner from purple to pink, and you go into one of your style sheets and you erase purple and you put in pink, and nothing happens. Like, uh-oh, Houston, we have a problem. Why isn't this changing colors? Well, instead of having you go through those 10 CSS sheets to find out the real problem, what you can do is add a CSS override. And how you add that is exclamation important. And then your site, well, theoretically anyway, this banner will turn from purple to blue. Now, the slippery slope with this too is that once you start, it's hard to stop. I have seen, when I was in enterprise, oh my goodness, developers, holy crap. When I was in enterprise, these style sheets, each sheet had hundreds of overrides. It was very painful to look at, and it was kind of a shock knowing that, you know, this literally $1 million plus application, okay, this company paid over $1 million for not only the contract, but for maintenance, well over $1 million, that this code was terrible. And this is an uncommon thing. Fortunately, these Udemy courses and all these other online platforms, these instructors usually teach you the best practices, so they get you in those good habits. So, you know, even though I didn't know a lot as a code newbie, I still knew, like, my like alert, like I was shocked to see the terrible practices in enterprise. And I was shocked to see that it was acceptable. And I was also shocked to see that this application was years old, and it was just interesting, among other things. because we get these best practices, we start using these best practices, and we build these projects with best practices, and we go into the real world and we see what's actually making money, we see what's turning a profit, we see what people are paying for, and the code is really bad, like really bad. And seeing, I mean, literally hundreds of CSS overrides, seeing that important, just line after line after line after line, untangling that, we just didn't have the manpower for it. There was so much to refactor, there was so much to rewrite. And what happens is, year after year, the site becomes slower and slower, becomes more sluggish, it becomes less performant, and eventually the site will come, the application or the site will come to a grinding halt. And I'm not saying that CSS plays a significant factor in that, because it's usually a programming language or something in the back end that, oh my gosh, don't get me started with the databases that need complete surgery. They need complete open heart surgery on these databases. But the important override, 10 style sheets is not optimal, especially when you can consolidate this stuff and use one style sheet. 100 lines of CSS to do the same thing as 1,000 lines of CSS, it's a no-brainer. Of course you want the thing that's shorter, the thing that's easier to read for humans, the thing that's more efficient for a computer to process. CSS does play a role in that, but again, and it illustrates too the holistic nature of our jobs, because whether you're a full stack developer or a front end developer, using Bootstrap, using Flexbox, using the grid, it comes back to serve a bigger purpose. We don't use the grid just to use the grid. We use the grid to create a layout so that our users have delightful experiences. So our users will click the add to cart button and not have a problem. So that our users will click pay now and feel good about it, rather than ask themselves, this site just doesn't feel right. So all of these methods, no matter if you're using Bootstrap, if you're using any of the Tailwind, doesn't matter. These all serve a purpose once you start getting paid to do these things. And it's to generate an income for a company, whether it's yours or someone else's. So going to the Tailwind thing, the Tailwind CSS, I've not even used it. I've heard so much about it and I haven't used it yet. I really want to. Maybe, I know this is not a tutorial channel at all. Maybe on one of our live streams, we could do like a live project or something. I don't know. I've heard a lot about it. Has anyone here used Tailwind? Is that even what it's freaking called? Let me Google this. Hold on. Let's see here. Tailwind, whoops, Tailwind CSS. It looks like I've visited this site. Should I share my screen again? A utility for CSS framework for rapidly building custom designs. I don't even know if it's worth sharing my screen. Tailwind is different. Instead of opinionated pre-designed components, Tailwind provides low-level utility classes, that let you build completely custom designs without ever leaving your HTML. This sounds kind of promising, interesting. Has anyone here used it? I don't know what I guess I was exploring it before. It indicates I have been here before and I don't remember. Let me see what you guys are up to. Rikers, what's up? White Hat Road. You need a good understanding of Sass to use Tailwind. Okay, good to know. Mohammed said, if you know CSS, Sass is easy to pick up on. Yeah, I agree. Sass is awesome. And that's just another thing too. Knowing CSS rather than going straight to the framework helps you use the framework better. And it helps you pivot easier. Because once you get into, your 9 to 5, or if you're running a business, you may be using 4 or 5 different CSS frameworks. You may be using 4 or 5 different CSS libraries, or a multitude of things. When I was in enterprise, oh my gosh, we had like a massive amount of JavaScript libraries. I think just 5 JavaScript frameworks. We were starting to use Vue, so there was like 1. And I say I don't know Vue, but I actually did use it a little bit in enterprise. So I used it, but I don't you know, it's not my domain. You know what I mean? I trained myself to learn React, which I haven't used for a long time either, because that's not my domain now either. Here and there, but nothing too crazy. Let's go to the comments. Kid Brave says, I use CSS and not so much of Bootstrap, but my question is, what's more important for employers, getting the project done on an everyday basis? I'm not sure if I understand the question. What's more important for employers, getting the project done on an everyday basis? I mean, to answer that kind of, if I'm reading that kind of right, the employer doesn't make the decision on what technologies, on what how do you say this? The owner of a company is not going to say, I want you to use Bootstrap. By and large, especially if you're at a bigger company. Now, maybe in startup land where there's like 6 people, the founder is going to have some more technical knowledge and be like, you know what? Tailwind is where it's at. I want all of you developers to start using Tailwind. If you're working for Sony, if you're working for an enterprise level company, PayPal, anything, doesn't matter. The CEO and the people in charge, the people who are wearing nice clothes, the non-hoodie wearing people, they have no idea what Bootstrap is. They have no idea what Tailwind is. And they certainly don't care how it gets done. They need it done. And that's what is another shock too, is that as developers, whether we're self-taught, especially for self-taught, we have what seems like all the time in the world to get these projects done. We don't have deadlines. We work on a project for 5 hours one day, we get up the next day, we work on it for 20 minutes. It might be pushed to GitHub this week, it might not. But when you're doing it for profit, there is a deadline and that takes precedence over everything. And this is another reason why something like Bootstrap is so popular, is because of that rapid ability to get something up, get something going, get something published. You have to give up a lot of your artistic endeavors. You have to give up most of them, if not all of them, once you start working at a 9 to 5 or even at your own company. There is very little self-indulgence when it comes to building web applications in 2020. And, you know, especially for creative people, this is hard, because I know for me, I just love creating. And I love things. I love giving things my certain style, my certain technique, my certain flavors. But the flavors aren't what pay the bills. The flavors aren't what get you paid or gets your company paid. So I'm not sure if that answered your question at all. But above all, in for-profit development work, the deadline takes priority over everything. They don't care how it's done. They need it done. They need it on their desk by 4 o'clock. And it's just like, dude, are you serious? You have no idea how hard this is for me right now. But they don't care. So you have to, so in that sense, you do have to get creative. There's a lot of creative thinking, but less creative creating, if that makes sense. Even at digital agencies where it's like, yes, we're creative. You're creative, but very, very narrowly. And self-indulgence does not work in those environments. So Sarah says, what's up, Sarah? The faster the projects get done, the better for the paycheck. Exactly. Andriel says, Bootstrap is basically the TV dinner of web dev. I love that comment. I endorse that comment. Robot Slavic says, sorry, Bootstrap is good for backwards compatibility and easy maintenance. Let's see. Carl Hum, I find Bootstrap good for small to medium-sized businesses. The time it saves can be better placed to deliver more for their budget. Mohammed says, does using Bootstrap really make you a better web developer? I think relying on Bootstrap for too long may lead to becoming rusty. Yeah. And that's like, how do you, but where's the cutoff though? That's kind of the question I find myself asking. Where is the cutoff between relying on something 100% and learning it myself so that I'm able to pivot faster? Because this whole thing, this is another thing too, is this time management thing and opportunity costs. Yes, I could spend 20 hours creating my own icon set, or I could spend a month creating my own navbar library. Is that going to make me a better developer? No. What will make me a better developer, though, is knowing how to pivot when these things change. And that's the probably the most important thing about this whole live stream, is that when you use these libraries, they're going to be changing. They're going to be updated. They're going to be downgraded. They're going to be no longer maintained. There are thousands, millions of projects at this point that have lost funding, that are no longer maintained, and that are deprecated. And that is bad news when you're doing this for profit. It's bad news when you're doing it for fun too, because you're like, hey, I'm working on this project. Where are my people? Where's my support system? Where's this tool I need, or this utility I need to get this thing up and running? Well, when it hasn't been updated in 2 years, things are going to break and you're not going to be able to complete the project as you wanted to. And not having the skill to pivot in order to solve that problem is going to be a problem. So what makes you a better developer is actually your problem solving skills, not implementation. Not implementation, because implementations are continuously changing. And if you can do something non-cerebrally without thinking, like, okay, Bootstrap, boom, 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 and they change it the next day, and you don't know how to pivot, I mean, that's not an expert move, because now you're stuck. An expert move would be to do that non-cerebrally, non-thinking, like, okay, here's my Bootstrap, like, oh, no more support. Okay, so what am I doing? I'm thinking about alternatives. I'm networking with the maintainers. I'm going to their blog to see the updates. I'm checking the logs. I'm checking all these things. I'm writing down notes. I'm talking with my team so we can transition to something else without any downtime, or with minimal downtime. The problem solving and the pivoting is what makes you a good developer, in my opinion, rather than knowing a single technology. Now, most developers, once they reach a certain stage, they stop calling themselves Vue developers, React developers. They call themselves software developers, because at a certain point in your career, it's not very easy, but it's non-cerebral. You don't think about it when you have to pick up another technology. Now, as a younger developer, if you're newer, that can seem monumental, Herculean. It seems hard. It's hard. It's very hard. And even learning a second programming language, even though it is easier than your first, it still takes a while. But after you've been doing it for a few years, it's largely a matter of syntax. Now, of course, programming languages have features and functions that are different from one another. So I'm not trying to paint that as being something like, oh, it's just syntax. That's not true. But once you get to a certain point, picking up a framework, picking up another library, it's just a thing. It's just something to do. So, and it won't take a month. It'll take a week. It'll take 2 weeks. You'll be looking at the documentation and getting these things down. So, if usually when you see these bios on Twitter or whatever, people who have been in for 5-10 years, like, yes, I'm a software developer. Whereas I tend to see younger developers say, I'm a React developer, or I'm an Angular developer, because that's their domain. And it's harder for younger developers to pivot because they just don't have that experience yet. And once you do, I mean, you'll be totally fine. And so you're in that domain and you're comfortable in that domain. But if something changed or there's no longer support, it's like, oh, what do I do? That's where the problem solving comes in. Anyways, developers, what's going on in these comments? Artie, what's going on? Broad knowledge helps you pivot. Knowledge is power and flexibility for problem solving. Andrea L. Hill says, is Angular still worth learning? I think it all depends on your job market, your local job market, who's hiring where you are. I think anything is worth learning if there's still a job for it and you're a good candidate for it, or there are a lot of jobs in your area. I know some cities, it's really funny, it's really interesting. Some cities in America are Ruby on Rails cities, or there's like abundance of Ruby jobs in certain cities and not other places. In the Midwest, .NET is pretty big because all these .NET shops started popping up in the 90s and they're still here. So, if you're in the Midwest and you're wondering, is .NET still worth it? It might be still worth it. Angular, Angular is not the beast it once was, in my opinion, for a multitude of reasons. One of the things that developers really felt burned by was the rewrite of Angular. So Angular.js was like version 1, and then there was a rewrite of it, and that upset a lot of developers. So they, Google, the team that developed Angular, a lot of developers lost respect for that framework and just said, you know what, never again. Don't burn us like this with a complete rewrite. So I think it's in 2021, Angular.js will be completely kaput. There will be no more. I could be totally wrong on this. I may be thinking of another framework, but I think I'm right. I think in 2021, Angular.js is just like, nope, you're completely on your own. I'm gonna have to research that and check it out. But the point being, there are still lots of companies that use Angular, and it might be something to check out. If you're wondering what to learn, there's so much, right? There's so much. But when it comes to frameworks, I would say check out the job market. Where you plan on working? If not in your local area, in like your designated local area, if you're open to moving or whatever, or you know your fantasy city where you want to move once you're good on your education. Like if there's a lot of Angular jobs there, heck yeah, it's worth learning. But if you don't see a lot, maybe not. But yeah, definitely, I think research is definitely key there. Hologram Nunchuck says PHP jobs in my area. Eugene says, hey RTC, would you be open to mobile development? No. I don't like mobile development. I don't like it at all. I don't enjoy it in the least. If the web as we know it, if the desktop web as we know it completely evaporated, then yes, I would do mobile. I would do mobile development begrudgingly. I would do my thing. I would get paid. I just don't like it. I don't like smartphones. I know I am completely in the minority with this. I just don't like them. Do I use them? Yes. Do I have a phone plan? Yes. Do I go out with my phone? Yes. Do I like it? No. It just feels like a handcuff. I just, ugh. It's so invasive. It's just like a portable spy device. Rant over. But to answer your question, it's just not my thing. iOS apps are very beautiful, and the whole Apple aesthetic. I wouldn't call myself a fangirl, but you know, when you enjoy something in your life, when you enjoy an appliance or you enjoy something in your life, you feel better about your life. And that's why I'm doing this live stream now on a MacBook Pro. I freaking love it. Yes, it was overpriced for the specs. I get that, but I don't care because I like this machine. I like the weight. I like the aesthetic. I like the operating system. I like that I don't have to enable some Windows subsystem for Mac or Linux subsystem for Mac. I can just rip open my terminal and start writing commands and do my thing in the terminal. There are other things that I like about it too, but I don't even know where this was going. Yes, I do, kind of. So, yeah, I actually don't know where this is going. So let's go back here. Let's go to my safe spot over here. Eugene says, this is why I love software development. This is how I feel about web development. Interesting. You know, that's funny. There are a few people on this channel who are like, you know, I watch your videos, but I think web development sucks. It's like, that's an interesting perspective. It really is though, because there is such a diversity of what you can do, and it is truly endless. The web is, I think web development is probably, it's complicated. It's complicated, and you know what's frustrating is that it's always changing, which is exciting in some senses, but in others, you can never keep up. You can never keep up. How many packages do we have on NPM right now? It's ungodly. Not that we're gonna use every one of them in a project, but it's just like, dude, seriously, we have reached peak JavaScript. Like, I'm fatigued with this JavaScript. We can do better. Like, stop reinventing the wheel. Fortunately, and I think this is happening for multiple reasons, but one of them is that our brethren, the people who came before us, these old school web developers and these engineers, they have made using the web so seamless that now we're just like counting threads. You know what I mean? We're not in the days where we're like, how do I log on? I can't even get into my browser. Like, no one's gonna flip a table because their browser is permanently broken. Like, these experiences are so silky and so smooth and so beautiful in user experience and user interface and all the stuff that makes it happen. All these zeros and ones, these have been arranged very intentionally and very brilliantly and very beautifully that we can log on with minimal issue, that we can do whatever we have replaced most of our outside lives with. We can go to the movies online. We can go to the bank online. We can seek any form of entertainment online. We can go to shows online. We can find recipe books online. We can do it all. And it has been engineered in a way that is so easy. And the web still has a lot of serious problems, but as far as like speed and efficiency, we're doing pretty good. So as far as like breakthroughs with like, it's gonna revolutionize the web, I think the web has already been revolutionized. It's already been, we're at that 90% level where it's just like, at this point, we're just like counting threads. I still enjoy it, but imagine like back in the day, back in the 80s or 90s, when we were just trying to going back to this freaking thing. Hold on, let me share my dang screen. Going back to this type of layout. Now, mind you, whoops, hello. Okay, now mind you, there's something incredibly nostalgic about this. This was your typical experience back in the 90s because number one, people weren't designers, and number two, we just didn't have the tools to build something like a Bootstrap theme or even something like this. We didn't have, where's my freaking thing? we couldn't build this. So we had this kind of stuff. And front-end development and back-end development has been totally smoothed over. And for the most part, it's seamless. So, where are our biggest problems? And I think our biggest problems are ones that no one is going to be getting paid for. Like as far as technical problems, the hardest ones, in my opinion, have been solved. And I don't know. I mean, what's going to revolutionize the web? We're at a point where we can do almost anything with it. And I'm not trying to sound small-minded, but I think a lot of this reinventing the wheel and doing these things and coming out with a new framework every week, I think we are feeling fatigued, or at least I'm feeling fatigued, because it's nothing new. It is nothing new. It is nothing new. It shaves off a millisecond here, which if they add up can be a lot, but there's got to be something bigger. There's got to be something bigger than just a millisecond in an entire application, which I know I'm going to get some haters for that comment because milliseconds matter, but I think you guys know what I mean. Let's go to the comments. Let me do the stop share here. Andriel says, our kids could go to school online. I have a son in middle school. Most of his work was online. Exactly. Exactly. Everything is online now. And think of it, back in the day, the security also, now, mind you, we have a lot of security problems on the web. But as we see time and time again, it's cheaper for companies to bypass security and just pay with the outrage. It's cheaper for the companies to deal with the outrage, to deal with the password leaks, to deal with the social security leaks and all this personal info. It's cheaper and better for them to deal with that than to actually participate in, and research, not just participate in best practices, security practices, but research ways of doing them better. It's not financial. There's no payoff. Even with class action lawsuits, it's cheaper for some of these companies to settle outside of court or whatever, or even settle in courts than to fix some of these things. Because some of these security problems are going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. In Minnesota, a couple years back, there is this DMV. They rewrote their DMV application. I don't know what exactly it did. I don't remember at this point, but this was a few years ago. So the code was so crusty, so rusty, so old that it could not go on. So they paid this firm over $100 million to revamp their code base, and they still did not have a working product. And so what happened? People were not getting their licenses. People were not getting their tabs. I got pulled over in St. Cloud because my tabs were expired. Why? Because I couldn't order new ones. $100 million had been sank into that program, and we still could not get our freaking tabs. That's a lot of money. I don't know where I was going with that story. My nose is like itching out of my rage right now. Excuse me, that was really rude. Whatever. But it's easier. It's easier for, and this is probably a bad example because this is a government entity. So, you know, not the best example of good stewards of money. But in a lot of these situations, people were, let me be clear. People were PO'd. People were very upset about, I mean, wouldn't you be, about not having current tabs? Even if you go out of state, like, yeah, you're screwed. And people out of state aren't going to know that, yeah, Minnesota's license plate tab program is like not working right now. These companies, I don't even know what I was going to say. I'm like seething right now. I'm just like, all I see is white right now. I'm just like white hot with rage over this tab thing. Like, man, there is just a perfect example of a place in software development that really needs our help. Government platforms, government programs off the web. I mean, even now with unemployment, they were looking for COBOL developers or people who knew COBOL to work on these mainframes because unemployment claims could not be processed and their computers were crashing and the code was crusty and rusty and dusty, and they needed people to help them. Yeah, I'm getting way off topic, developers. Chiquito, what year is your Mac? It's a 2015. 2015, let me check. I think it's 2015. Yep, 15-inch mid 2015, and I freaking love it. Curtis says, love my, where'd those comments go? Man, I just got flooded with comments. Love my iPad, but my AirBook is nice too. I've never tried the AirBook. The only Apple product I have is my MacBook, and I have nothing bad to say about it. It has served me so well. Kid Brave says, I'm supposed to be having a day off from doing and hearing about tech, but I love hearing you talk about topics since they're on point and so enlightening. Thank you, Kid Brave. Thanks for tuning in. Only W says, I don't know. I feel like many people have thought that we reached the peak before what we have now. That's a good point. No, I know. And it just, I got to be careful with how I present this idea because I know I've been using the web since I was a teen and I've seen a lot of the great changes. But like, if I knew the possibilities, if I knew what was behind door number 1 and I knew these possibilities that I can't see, then I wouldn't be saying, oh, we've reached the peak. Like there are certainly possibilities out there with the web that we have no idea exist, that somebody's going to discover, that somebody's going to develop, that someone's going to say, you know what, this actually is a web revolution. This actually is revolutionizing the web. But for me, it's just hard to see that. It's really hard to see that because honestly, my sense of wonder for the web has waned. Like I don't have that sense of wonderment. I still log on. I still enjoy the web. But as far as like feeling inspired, as far as like feeling like, yes, this is the way to go. We're going to continue to just blast off and revolutionize this web and make it this, and this. I guess it's, for me, it's like an aspirational thing. Like I've seen the huge gains in the web and I'm just having a hard time imagining what could be possible. Whereas 15 years ago, we were imagining what we wanted and what was possible because we were dealing with stuff like GeoCities layouts. And so less and less, I'm online and I say, wouldn't it be nice to have XYZ? Wouldn't it be nice to have ABC? People have already engineered those things. Whereas 15 years ago, there were many times where I was saying, it would be nice to have ABC. Holy crap, it wouldn't be nice to have XYZ. What would be nice to have in 2020 is privacy. And there are a lot of people, but privacy is not profitable. The lack of privacy is profitable. There's actually a really interesting video on YouTube called Surveillance Capitalism. There's this woman, I think she's an Ivy League professor, and it's an interview with her, and the way she talks about it is absolutely so engaging. I think her name's Shoshana something, but she talks about surveillance capitalism and how the real money is not protecting users' privacy on the web, but exploiting their privacy on the web. And so how do you gain control of that? Like, how do you solve that problem? Well, we have browsers like Brave. We have we have something like Tor, onion routing. We have these various tools, but I mean, you still need to use JavaScript to use the web. You still need to log in to buy something. You still need to sign up to have a PayPal account. These things that I find, so I take it back. The things that I do find interesting about the web that we could change for the better, they're just, unless it has to be a complete shift from the powers that be, because the most profitable companies that use the web, that espouse the web, that develop the web, are exploiting and profiting off of surveillance rather than privacy. So how do you change that? Well, you can't code your way out of that, I don't think, because if you want a Gmail account, you have to use Google. Unless, no, so this is like, I don't know. So I'm actually, I have to be honest, I am ambivalent. There are some times where I'm just like, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be so cool? And there are other times I'm like, it's too late. It's too late. Look at these huge tech companies that are, Facebook and Google and Twitter. They rule our lives. So yeah, I knew I was going to shoot myself in the foot going into that because I'm just so ambivalent about it. I could go up, I could go down about it, depending on the topic. But I do know the web has seriously changed in the biggest way of the money's here. Back in the day, the money was not here, and now there is money here. And so it is harder. It is harder to make a change. It is harder to stand out unless you're Google. Let's see. Fineway says EU fined Facebook $122 million for lying about Facebook's ability to cross-integrate information from WhatsApp to their own platform. Right, $122 million is peanuts for these companies. And going back to that surveillance capitalism, billions upon billions of dollars worth of our data, that big money. So paying out 100 million, it all comes down to the balance sheet. 100 million bucks compared to $1 billion, that's easy math. I think I'm gonna sell people's data and make $1 billion and then pay the fine later. If that's all it is, it's a slap on the wrist. Interesting comments today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Andriel says, social media, you are not the customer, you are the product. Yeah, and that's it too. And I know this has nothing to do with Bootstrap or Flexbox. Maybe we can tie it in. If someone can tie surveillance capitalism into Bootstrap versus Flexbox, they will win the thread for the day. They will win the chat. What were we talking about? Something about social media. Okay, so this is exactly the thing that is most interesting to me about these free products, whether it's Gmail, another Google product, YouTube, although you can opt into YouTube, what is it, YouTube Premium, Twitter, other social media, you cannot pay. You cannot pay to opt out of their surveillance. Like, why wouldn't you give me that option? I couldn't pay $100 a month for you to like delete my logs or give me some sort of privacy or not keep logs. They'll never do that. I mean, even that is just stunning to me that I can't go to Twitter, I can't go to a social media site and be like, yes, I want to upgrade to the don't track me plan. I want to upgrade to the stay out of my business plan. I just want to share a few tweets about my business and that's it. And you can go your own way and I'll pay you my money. That's not even an option. That to me is weird. And I mean, why would you do that? Because your data is where the cash is. Jay Incarnate says, is Team Treehouse interactive? Mostly no, they're video based. Anime Amin says, do you recommend Team Treehouse front end course, not the tech degree? Team Treehouse or Treehouse, it's an okay platform. It's okay for the basics. It's video based. Their videos are very clean. You will find yourself reaching a peak very quickly and outgrowing the platform very quickly. The navigation is very difficult as well. That's maybe my number one gripe, is that navigating that site is so darn tough. And we have other options that are easier to navigate, like Udemy. Also, too, I'm not sure how often they do update their videos. It's been about 2 years, maybe a year and a half since I've really taken a look at their platform. But Treehouse, it's not my favorite, we'll put it that way. Oh, Fineway with the $5 super chat. Thank you, Fineway, and welcome. Fineway joined our Discord last week, so a warm welcome to Fineway and all our other new members. If you're interested, check out the RealToughCandy Discord. We have over 1,000 members. It's a really fun community, laid back. We have a bunch of different rooms. Review my portfolio, projects we're working on, general chat. We have a meme room, a music room, a pets room, which is one of my favorites. People post their cute little fur babies and I go, ah, and I turn into that emoji with hearts for eyes, and it's not good. Paradoodly says, navigating Treehouse sucks. GTD, what's up? How many people have actually went through Bootstrap's code? I think if they offered analytical components or marketing components, they might increase their user base. That's a really great suggestion. I would love that too. Yeah. More integration with analytics and various, well, I know we just got done talking about surveillance capitalism, but more tracking. Curtis Davis says the problem with COBOL is its procedural code versus object-oriented code. Mainframe bad, transforming it, terrible idea. But there's some tech called MuleSoft that goes between two worlds. Interesting, never heard of MuleSoft. Let's see. Thanks, Paradoodly Doo, for dropping the Discord. Let me take a sip of my little bev. Joshua, what's going on? Josh K says, what are your thoughts on AI in regards to changes of web development? I don't have solid thoughts on that right now. And I've been trying to have some for like 2 years, like seriously. Well, I think AI is best suited for other endeavors, like, and especially discipline-specific endeavors like healthcare. But as far as AI in general on the web, I don't really have any interesting or insightful thoughts I can share with you on that. I haven't seen it. Now, sometimes, so here's a little insider information about RealToughCandy and my day-to-day operations. I get emails every week from people wanting to sponsor the channel, wanting me to review their product or talk about it or blah, blah, blah. The vast majority of them go straight to trash because I don't like their product and I don't like their service. Some of them, I say, you know what? I think you have a kind of a cool product. Let's talk about this. But the majority of them I do not like. They're just junk. They're e-waste. And so sometimes I'll get these sponsorship proposals from people who want me to review the new AI-assisted web developer drag and drop building platform. Like, AI, tell me more about your AI. And the less specific they are, the more I know they're full of crap. You're not using AI. You're not using Skynet or some big AI thing to help me with my WYSIWYG freaking drag and drop editor. You're just not. So that's been my experience. My experience with AI and web development has not been on the professional level. And honestly, I wouldn't even know where to find it. Like who is working with AI in web development, like that, where we can actually see the results. Because, you know, YouTube has the algorithm, which is driven by artificial intelligence, but we're not going to see the code for that anytime soon. And even if we did, we couldn't understand it, because even some of the engineers are like, yeah, we don't know how it works. Like, seriously. I want to find that article about the Google engineers being like, yeah, actually, we wrote this and we don't know how it works. Like, that's a little scary. You built it. How did you know it was going to work in the first place? If you built it and designed it, and now you're saying, how can you say you don't know how it works if you knew how it worked? You know what I mean? How can you not know how it works if you built it? That's what I'm saying. Well, it's AI, so it has a mind of its own. But to your point, I just don't have I don't have a solid opinion on it right now. I have not been exposed to it. Midnight Sun with the super chat. Thank you for that, Midnight Sun, asking, do you see emerging market for social change devs? Yes. Here's why. A lot of these companies, the companies themselves cannot afford to embrace social change as their company culture. However, through charitable giving and other financial means, they have supported social issues, many of them. They're not hard to find. And we are seeing more companies become, I don't know, some people call it woke, whatever word you want to use. So social consciousness is more important to companies because more people are saying this is important. So these changes aren't from some guy smoking a cigar saying, you know what, I want to see some changes in how we treat our environment. That's usually not how it works. There is an outrage, there's the outrage mob on Twitter, or there's somebody's daughter, like, you know, some powerful person's daughter who's like, it's their pet issue, and then plants the seed, and people are like, yeah, what about that? What about that issue? For a lot of these things, it's too risky to officially adopt that. And so we see these companies give money to developer organizations, developers themselves, or other institutions that are proponents for, you know, this blanket thing called social change. But I do see it more and more. And really, I think it's almost akin to like the organic foods movement or something, where people who can afford to support it will, and other people would just be like, yeah, right on, if they can't afford it, but do support it. There are going to be other people who want nothing to do with it, you know? And it's a lifestyle thing. And that's what's, I think, might be dangerous about it. The social change development is that rather than a tech first approach, it's a social change approach. And so where the leadership, I'm curious to see where the leadership will come from. Because as we've seen in various circumstances, sometimes tech goes this way and social issues go that way. Or people wanting to fix a social issue go this way and the tech goes that way. So how do you merge those two? So that's interesting. And that's a very interesting question. There are a lot of issues that people, you know, I mean, this is not a new thing, but more and more people, I think it's kind of like the organic foods movement, which I am that's my social change. Like, that's my big thing, that I not only support it, but I actually believe in it by using my money to buy food that was raised humanely, including fruits and vegetables. I believe in, that is my big thing. That's my big thing. And so I support it. Now, becoming a developer that focuses exclusively on organic food, could I make that happen? Yeah, I could probably work with farmers. I was just looking at a few websites last night. Some of these local farmers, there are a lot of local people who produce these local things. And I'm looking at these websites. Some of them were a complete wreck. Some of them were a complete wreck. And if I took it upon myself to say, you know what, my social issue is going to be the environment and organic foods, I could make a career out of that. And so that's another thing to consider too, is that social change, it doesn't have to be a blanket thing. It can be a niche, and it probably should. Otherwise you probably won't ever get anything done. So niching down into what's important to you and then going after those people in that circle. And that's exciting too, to see the web become a little more decentralized. And going back to that thing about me shooting myself in the foot, saying, I'm not inspired by the web. I hate the web. Like, developers, some parts of it really turn me off. Most days I'm just not inspired. But talking about this stuff, I start feeling that spark. Because decentralizing this and taking your skills and doing something that you enjoy is usually, there's going to be a positive in that. Because it's number one, you should be doing something that you at least enjoy. This career field is not meant for you to be miserable. So taking it off the central web and applying your skills to something that you find important, and to the point that you mentioned, Midnight Sun, about being a socially, what was the word phrase that you used, socially something, social change devs. So you use capitalization on social change devs. I don't know, is that a movement? I don't know if that's like an official movement or whatever. But, you know, taking it off the big web and then making it, and then just going to that niche, I think possibilities are kind of endless there. But you got to keep in mind too that you got to get paid. So when you choose your niche, make sure there's money in it. Like the farmers, that could be a good niche. That could be a good niche for organic farming. I mean, building web apps for just like social things, social tools, social online tools. Like, I'm trying to think what else. I think that's a really underserved market too, agriculture. Agriculture is a huge industry developer, like huge, massive. And for most people, that industry just isn't exciting as a software developer. But really learning more about agriculture, there is a lot of cool stuff going on. And I was reading this article about some of these farmers trying to hack in. There was John Deere getting ticked off because these farmers were trying to like tweak the software on their tractors, and John Deere was like, this is proprietary software, you can't. They were trying to open source some of this software and you know, go full Linux on their John Deere tractor, and John Deere was like, whoa, no, this is proprietary, Sonny, you can't be tweaking that code. It's interesting, family farmers and what they do to make their operations more efficient. These modern tractors and these modern farm tools are all digitized. There's a huge software component to them all, and these things aren't cheap. They're 6 figures on the regular. So yeah, great question, great thing. It's something really interesting to think about too. Thanks for the super chat. Jim says churches make some righteous money. Exactly. You know, I know a few people. Okay, not a few, that's a lie. I know one person in my network who does church-based development, church-based tech. The guy has no problem finding clients. It's all about that network. So a lot of these churches, these mega churches have money. They have money. A lot of these churches, not a lot, but quite a few of these. What's the difference between quite a few and a lot? Is this like a lot and this is like quite a few? Quite a few of these mega churches, they're class-based. So, you know, there's that one church, because I used to live in Texas. Some of these churches are, most of these churches are class-based. So, you know, you're not going to see like poor people gathering with the millionaires. The millionaires have their own church. Joel Osteen, I used to live outside Houston. I used to drive past his church. It's huge. There's these other mega churches. They fit, you know, a freaking crowd to go see Journey or Led Zeppelin. It's just like, it's a huge amphitheater. And, you know, there's millionaires, flooded with millionaires. Not to say that they're more liable or more likely to buy web services, but they have money. And their church is flush with money. The church was, their tech, they have, sometimes these churches have like teams of techies and sound people, and man, there's a lot of money in some of these churches. And this person has no issue. There's no issue making a living in that niche. So that's interesting too, to think about these niche-based tech careers. And going back to sorry, I forgot your name. We're talking about web development and mobile development. I don't like mobile. This person doesn't like web, but it doesn't matter because there are just so many implementations. If you don't like something, there's something out there for you to enjoy. And taking it into a niche is one way to keep things interesting and do something that you do enjoy. Andrielle says, one nice thing about living in a rural area is that at a local store, cattle ranchers slaughter their cattle and sell their meat. Yes, I was just talking to someone the other week on the live stream. They bought their first hindquarter, is it called? And I was like, what is that? So I started researching and I found some people throughout the Midwest that many, and even in the state, they will sell you 150-pound hindquarter or shank or whatever it's called. It's 150 pounds and it's $3 a pound. And I was like, that is a brilliant idea. You got a deep freezer? $3 a pound is pretty cheap. I wonder if they process it too. Like you'd have to do you pay for processing as well? I'm curious. I know this is like seriously off topic, but rural, this is another opportunity. Not everyone lives in a city. There are rural opportunities too. You just don't see them in the same way you see them in a city. So in the city, you have skyscrapers and digital agencies and, fashionistas and people in different phases of their lives, people doing different things in the art scene, in the punk scene, doing whatever. Rural America has a different face and it has a different style. And you don't see skyscrapers and you don't see tech like everywhere, but it is there. It's there. It's at the farms. It's at the co-op, the dairy co-op. It's at the farmer's market. It's at the schools. And it's there. And I know people, there are a lot of people who are tuned into this channel who live in rural areas who have the perception that maybe I need to move into a city. That's not true. If you don't want to move in a city, you don't have to. You're going to be driving a lot. You're going to be doing a lot more traveling when you're rural, but there are opportunities everywhere. It doesn't matter if you live in Wyoming, Maine, Montana, the Dakotas. Geez, place like Iowa, there's a lot going on in Iowa. Anyways, I digress. Rikers Island with the $50 super chat. Rikers, my friend. 2 weeks in a row now, Rikers has dropped the bomb. Thank you so much for that super chat. This was the person who inspired this video title, and we have gotten way off topic, okay? We have gotten way off topic. Bootstrap versus Flexbox. There is a tie-in though, developers. It's all related. It is all related. In finding out what you like, what you want to do, and how you're going to make your money and how you're going to enjoy your life. That's the tie-in. That's the tie-in. Thank you, Rikers, so much. Curtis Davis says, worked on partner software used by John Deere API. The software grabs data like where all bare land is, and sensors tell where to spray fertilizer. It's cool. Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. I read that article. I'm like, it makes sense that all of these pieces of equipment, these implements, these tractors, these things, they're so expensive. They're not just going to be completely machines. They're going to have software and hardware in there too. And how farmers, you know what? I'm going to put that on the list. I want to go interview some person who works on a farm with all their implements and ask them about their software. I want to meet one of these farmer hackers and I want to interview them about what they do. Like, are you cracking? Are you like cracking codes? Like, are you in the farming basement? Are you in your silo, like playing with Kali Linux and like using Metasploit to get into this thing? What are you doing? What do you do? How do you hack a John Deere tractor? It's so cool. Let's see. Andriel says, well, they have to take the cattle to a slaughterhouse first, the meat of the leg, I think. So, okay, so that's, yeah, I'm curious, like, I see what you're saying. So the 150 pounds, you're claiming that part of the cow, and then you're like, okay. And then who takes it to the slaughterhouse? I'm so curious now. Like, this is my next step. This is my next step in my food revolution. Buying a cow. Single source. Don't even touch me. Don't even go there. That is my next step in my food adventures. GTD says, isn't the egg industry in a bit of a danger if the vegan movement takes off? Who's going vegan though? Is there a big like vegan movement? I don't know. Andriel says, I want to be a farmer hacker. Wouldn't that be something though? That would be so fun. I don't have the discipline to be a successful farmer. I already know it. There'll be days where I'm just like, I can't check the corn. I'm depressed. What part of that don't you get? Like, if I see one more kernel, I'm going to puke and cry and just not want to get out of bed for another 5 days. Like, I just couldn't do it. I just don't have the discipline. Like, my schedule is very nonlinear, and I know farming requires you to be there at certain times, doing certain things. Maybe if it was like a strawberry patch, like hacking my strawberry patch, I could handle it. But other than that, these farmers, man, I couldn't do it. All right, developers, it's 5:30 and we have gotten severely off topic as usual. You never know what we're going to talk about on the RealToughCandy live stream, but let's get back. Let's bring it all back home and sum up what we're talking about today. Bootstrap versus Flexbox. Bootstrap version 4 now includes Flexbox as their layout option of choice rather than floats, which is a great thing. Floats aren't inherently evil, but they are kind of outdated. And we're web developers, so we got to be on point. We also have this thing called Flexbox Grid, which adds to confusion because there is something called the CSS grid, which uses rows and columns. It's a 2D type of thing, whereas Flexbox is one-dimensional. Also, we took a little peek at some projects using the grid, using that Masonry layout I love so much. Not commonly used with grid, but wanted to try something different. We talked about hindquarters. We talked about outdated languages. Oh my gosh. We talked about the surveillance. We talked about surveillance capitalism. We talked about John Deere APIs. Developers, as usual. Another robust live stream. And a last minute Eugene B super chat. Thank you, Eugene. Appreciate that. Says, I like your energy. Sometimes it's nice to interact with other devs other than my fellow iOS devs. I'm going to have to get back into going out of my comfort zone and watching some of these other developer channels that don't do web development. There are some, man, I just don't watch YouTube like I used to. But there was one channel, I think it was an iOS channel. I think it's called Let's Build That App. I don't really tune into YouTube for entertainment much. My schedule doesn't allow it. But it's interesting seeing the different styles and the different ways people decide to take software. Like, what are you doing with it? And the communities. And I don't really engage that much with mobile developers. And this is my question. This is something, so somebody brought this up the other day in the Discord about backend development, or I might have brought it up just because I was, feeling cranky or something about backend developers. Where are our DBAs? Is there how is there not a modern database channel on YouTube? It's just like not a thing. Where are the DBAs? Where are the backend developer channels? Hey, share some good DBA or database and backend channels, because I have no idea where they are. I don't even know if I have a single backend developer subscribed to this channel. Where? I know they're out there. I just don't know where. Thanks everyone for tuning in. As always, great fun live stream. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This live chat has been absolute fire, and I appreciate you tuning in. Basically, it's just basically. I wanted to say something just so monumental, but I couldn't. And so I'm gonna log off and stop making myself look silly. Timestamps coming later tonight. I know some people, you know, the hour plus live stream is just not cutting it for them. This is like an hour and a half. Oh my goodness. Shout out to Andriel, Curtis, Sarah, GTD, Rebecca, Paradoodly. Thanks for modding, Sarah and Para. Eugene, all my super chatters today. Rikers Island with the massive super chat bomb, $49.99. Appreciate you, Rikers. Thanks for today's topic. I hope it helped somewhat. I know we went really off topic. Eugene, Midnight Sun, and of course, Fine Way. Thank you for your support and making this channel possible. Shout out to my patrons who also make this channel possible. Patreon.com/RealToughCandy. We have a few of them in the chat. And my YouTube channel members as designated with green text and a piece of candy next to their name. What's up, Sippo Charles? Missed you in the chat today. Sorry I didn't see that. And then we have some other channel members here too. Sippo and Randy, and there was another person. Oh my gosh, this chat is just absolutely massive. And William Claybrook and many others. And Donovan. And hopefully I didn't miss anyone else, but if I did, I apologize. Developers, we do this every Friday. We talk about it. We just, where it goes is where it goes. Unedited, you know how we do it. Thanks for tuning in. This is a Zoom chat, so the cutoff is going to be awkward. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.